After Oil, Thorium Reactors and the New Energy Order. Introduction, the end of oil and the collapse of the old order. For over a century, oil has been the master key to civilization. It powered empires, shaped economies, sparked wars, and became the lifeblood of a global system built on extraction, scarcity, and control. The United States, through the petrodollar system, secured not just energy dominance, but monetary hegemony, tying oil to the dollar and the dollar to the world. It worked until it didn't. Today, that order is cracking. Fossil fuels are no longer the unshakable foundation they once were. Geopolitical tensions, climate imperatives, and diminishing energy returns are squeezing the fossil economy from all sides. But more importantly, new technologies are making oil obsolete, not incrementally, but fundamentally. At the forefront of this shift is thorium, a forgotten nuclear fuel that, when paired with molten salt reactor (MSR) technology, promises near infinite, safe, clean energy. While the West slept on this potential, China did not. And it is China's embrace of thorium, along with its parallel advances in AI, space infrastructure, digital payments, and manufacturing, that signals the birth of a new energy order, one rooted not in scarcity, but in abundance. This is not just a change in fuel source. It is a change in civilization. And the world is beginning to split between those building for this future and those still clinging to the crumbling architecture of the past. Section 2, Thorium, the forgotten fuel of the future. Thorium isn't new. It was discovered in the 1800s, tested in the 20th century, and then quietly shelved, not because it failed, but because it didn't serve the geopolitical goals of the Cold War. In the 1960s, U.S. scientists at Oak Ridge National Laboratory successfully operated a thorium-based molten salt reactor, MSR, proving its viability. But the project was ultimately abandoned. Why? Because thorium couldn't be weaponized. Unlike uranium or plutonium, thorium doesn't produce bomb-grade byproducts. It was too peaceful, too clean, too inconvenient for a world addicted to military leverage. The U.S. chose a different path, one that prioritized nuclear arms and naval reactors over long-term energy sustainability. But thorium has always held unmatched potential. It's 3 to 4 times more abundant than uranium. It's naturally fertile, converting into fissile U-233 inside a reactor. In a molten salt design, the fuel is liquid, eliminating meltdown risks and enabling passive safety mechanisms. It burns cleaner, produces a fraction of the waste, and operates at atmospheric pressure. No giant domes, no steam explosions. Fast forward to today, China has picked up where the U.S. left off, quietly investing billions into reviving and mastering thorium MSRs. In 2021, it built and began testing a 2-megawatt prototype in the Gobi Desert. That's not just a power test, that's a field simulation for Moon or Mars deployment. This isn't a technology of the past. It's the next generation foundation for energy sovereignty, post-oil industrialization, and off-world infrastructure. And China is moving fast to make it real, while the rest of the world scrambles to remember what thorium even is. Section 3, the linchpin, thorium deposits and the brick strategy. China's technological push into thorium reactors didn't come from nowhere. It came after a discovery, a game-changing revelation that reshaped their energy calculus. In a declassified geological survey, Chinese scientists revealed an estimated 1 million tons of thorium at the Bayan Obo mining complex in Inner Mongolia. That's enough, according to projections, to power China for 60,000 years using MSR technology. Let that sink in. For decades, China was believed to have relatively modest thorium reserves. But this discovery leapfrogs China ahead of Brazil, India, and the U.S., catapulting it from a secondary player into a primary energy superpower of the post-oil world. And here's where it gets strategic. The top 3 thorium-rich countries on Earth are now all BRICS members. India, 846,000 tons. Brazil, 632,000 tons. China, now estimated at 1 million tons. This isn't coincidence. It's coordination. It's a slow-motion, planetary-scale realignment. The BRICS alliance, once seen as a loose economic bloc, is beginning to look more like an OPEC of the post-carbon era. But instead of oil wells, its members control the world's most vital clean energy resource. And with China leading the way in thorium reactor IP, infrastructure, and space deployment, it becomes not just a resource cartel, but a technological and strategic one. Every nation that joins BRICS or aligns with its energy initiatives becomes part of this new operating system, one that does not rely on Western fossil fuels, USD-based trade, or SWIFT payment rails. Instead, it's a world increasingly powered by thorium, transacted in local or gold-backed digital currencies, and coordinated through BRICS native systems like M-Bridge. This was the linchpin moment. Find the fuel of the future. Secure the world's largest deposits. Build the alliance around it. Control the technology stack that unlocks it. And they're doing it. Quietly, relentlessly, and strategically. Section 4. The New Energy Infrastructure. MSRs and Lunar Ambitions. China isn't just building energy systems for Earth. It's building them for off-Earth deployment. The Gobi Desert, dry, desolate, and sparsely populated, wasn't chosen as a thorium MSR test site by accident. It's a terrestrial analog for conditions on the moon: temperature swings, isolation, resource scarcity, and limited water. If the reactor works there, it can work anywhere, including beyond Earth's atmosphere. And that's exactly the plan. Chinese scientists have publicly expressed interest in placing thorium molten salt reactors on the moon. Why? Because lunar infrastructure needs a stable, radiation-resilient, low-maintenance energy source that can run through the 2-week lunar night when solar power fails. Thorium MSRs, sealed and self-regulating, fit perfectly. What powers that vision? The moon contains thorium in its crust, particularly in regions like the Procellarum creep terrain. China's space program is already targeting the lunar South Pole, where water ice and key resources exist. Lunar regolith-based construction is being developed to build structures using moon dust itself, minimizing Earth launch costs. It's not just a science project, it's an infrastructure strategy. 1. Build MSRs that run off local fuel. 2. Construct habitats and power stations using in-situ resources. 3. Establish a lunar energy and logistics hub as a launchpad for Mars, asteroid mining, and beyond. This is how China is thinking. Not in election cycles, but in civilizational arcs. And here's the kicker. Any country that adopts Chinese thorium reactors on Earth becomes part of this ecosystem. The hardware, the fuel, the control systems, they all reinforce China's role as the core node in the new energy network. From desert to moon, from scarcity to abundance, this is the new model. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Section 5. The Great Technological Undercut: AI, EVs, and Deflationary Disruption. While China builds the energy backbone of the future, it's simultaneously undermining the old economic order with strategic precision, especially in AI and manufacturing. This isn't just a race to the top. It's a calculated bleed of Western dominance, sector by sector. Let's start with AI. OpenAI, Google, and other American firms have burned tens of billions building LLMs, training clusters, and cloud ecosystems. The assumption that AI leadership requires limitless capital, closed models, and monopolized infrastructure. Then came DeepSeek, China's open-source LLM that's already showing signs of competitive parity at a fraction of the cost. Combined with state-backed compute infrastructure and broader AI democratization efforts, China is saying, you don't need trillion-dollar burn rates to play this game. It's the same play they ran in EVs. Tesla may have pioneered the EV market, but BYD and dozens of Chinese firms are now flooding the global market with reliable, high-value electric vehicles, cheaper, faster, and locally sourced. They're also dominating battery tech, with CATL and others owning the majority of the global lithium supply chain. When you fuse thorium-based energy, low-cost, competitive AI, globally exported EVs and batteries, autonomous robotics, you don't just get technological parity, you get deflationary superiority. Every customer China wins, whether for a car, a chip, a robot, or an AI model, is a customer lost to U.S. market share. And unlike U.S. firms addicted to venture capital, China's firms are nationally aligned, long-term oriented, and often state-supported. The net result? A new industrial layer, powered by abundant energy, intelligent systems, and supply chains, the West no longer controls. And that's before we even mention blockchain and payments. Section 6, Blockchain, CBDCs, and the post-SWIFT payment system. The Western financial system was built on control. The U.S. dollar, backed by oil and enforced through SWIFT, allowed America to act as both the bank and the referee of global trade. But like oil, that system is cracking under the weight of better technology and alternative alignment. Enter mBridge. Co-developed by China, the BIS Innovation Hub, and central banks across Asia and the Middle East, mBridge is a cross-border digital currency platform. It's the BRICS answer to SWIFT, only faster, cheaper, programmable, and politically neutral. Now imagine smart contracts triggering trade settlement automatically, local currencies converted at the protocol layer, not by intermediaries, blockchain rails that don't touch a single U.S. bank or network. That's not theoretical. It's happening, and it aligns perfectly with China's central bank digital currency, CBDC, which is already being trialed in trade settlements and Belt and Road projects. Combine that with BRICS's growing gold reserves and a potential commodity-backed settlement unit, and you have the makings of a parallel financial system, one that doesn't rely on the US dollar, doesn't use SWIFT, isn't vulnerable to sanctions or capital controls. And here's the kicker. As nations adopt Chinese MSRs, EVs, AI platforms, and trade corridors, they're naturally onboarded into this financial OS. Energy, intelligence, logistics, and finance, all vertically integrated. This is how hegemony fades. Not with war, but with replacement infrastructure, silently adopted, steadily grown, and ultimately irreversible. The USD still exists, but each mBridge transaction is one less reason to use it. Each CBDC cross-border trade is a proof of concept that the old system isn't needed. The empire isn't being overthrown, it's being rendered irrelevant. Section 7. Fallout. What happens to the old world powers? The West, led by the United States, built its global standing on three main pillars. 1. Cheap energy from oil and control over oil-producing regions. 2. Technological supremacy via Silicon Valley, defense, and IP. 3. Monetary hegemony, USD plus SWIFT, plus global debt dependency. Each of those pillars is now cracking. Some have already collapsed. Oil no longer guarantees power. As thorium MSRs scale up and renewables continue to mature, the geopolitical leverage of oil declines. Countries dependent on oil exports, like Saudi Arabia, Russia, Venezuela, face long-term revenue collapse. U.S. shale? Still costly and politically fragile. Western energy giants, built on mega projects and centralized grids, now face a future of modular, localized, deflationary power. Tech supremacy is being undermined. While the West innovates, it monetizes first, commoditizes second. China flips the script, commoditize first, then own the global stack. AI, DeepSeek, and open-source LLMs at 1/10 the cost. Hardware? China's chip ecosystem is catching up under sanctions. EVs and robotics? Already dominant. The U.S. still leads in biotech and deep research, but its monopoly is fading fast. The dollar faces structural decline, with mBridge, CBDCs, gold-backed trade, and rising bilateral agreements. The dollar is being quietly sidelined. Countries are dumping treasuries. Energy and trade are shifting to non-dollar settlement. The threat isn't collapse, it's irrelevance through disuse. Institutional inertia. The U.S. and much of the West remain trapped in outdated regulatory frameworks, especially for nuclear and AI, political gridlock, inflationary economic models that require endless growth and debt. Meanwhile, BRICS-aligned nations are building new rails, new systems, and new incentives, with global uptake accelerating. So where does that leave the West? Still powerful, but increasingly on defense. Still wealthy, but increasingly outpaced. Still a leader, but no longer the leader. Unless the U.S. and its allies pivot fast, reviving thorium R&D, decentralizing AI, rebuilding energy infrastructure, and embracing multipolar trade, they risk becoming legacy systems in a post-West world. Section 8. Conclusion. The new energy order has already begun. This isn't theoretical. It's not 10 years away. It's already happening. Thorium reactors are being tested. mBridge is live in cross-border trials. Chinese EVs are dominating global markets. AI models like DeepSeek are proving that scale doesn't require trillions. And BRICS? It's evolving from an economic bloc into a civilizational operating system. The post-oil world isn't a prediction. It's a transition already in motion. And at its center is a clear set of priorities: energy abundance over energy control, multipolarity over monopoly, deflationary production over inflationary extraction, open source acceleration over proprietary bottlenecks, infrastructure over ideology. The petrodollar era was about control of supply chains, currencies, and choke points. The thorium era is about coordination, networks, protocols, and permissionless development. China didn't just stumble into this position. It planned, patiently, systemically, and with an eye on 100-year outcomes. From the deserts of Gansu to the regolith of the moon, from cross-border CBDCs to AI accelerators in cheap silicon, the architecture of a new energy order is being assembled brick by brick, bite by bite. The question is no longer if the world is changing. The question is who's building for what comes next and who's still clinging to what's already gone.